Good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Ramachandran, cosmetic surgeon from Apollo Spectra Hospitals. Today, we're going to talk another interesting topic related to aesthetic surgery, and that is hair transplant. Hair transplant is basically a surgical procedure by which hair is removed from the back of the head and transplanted to the area which is bald. The area which is at the back is called the donor site. The area where we are actually planting is called the recipient area. The most common indication for hair transplant is called male pattern baldness or androgenetic alopecia. As the name suggests, it is commonly seen in men, and it is probably one of the most common causes for hair loss in men. There are different grades to it. It ranges from grade 1 to 7, and in grade 7, which is the most advanced stage of baldness, usually the person has a fringe or a horseshoe shaped segment of hair bearing skin at the back of the head. Of course, there are other causes for hair loss. It could be scarring alopecia, it could be hair loss due to some other skin problems, it could be due to post burn. Hair loss could also occur following chemotherapy. So there are various aspects, but the most common indication for hair transplant would be androgenetic alopecia or male pattern baldness. Now, when we go through the steps of hair transplant, we should know what are the basics of hair transplant. How did we arrive at this solution? About maybe 50-60 years back, with a series of case studies and evaluation of patients, it was found that even if a patient becomes completely bald, there is usually that horseshoe-shaped segment of hair-bearing skin at the back which does not fall. So they felt that this was a very safe area, and this was not under the influence of any factor which was causing hair loss. And they also found that if hair is removed from this area and transplanted to the recipient area, this hair not only survived but also continued growing and did not fall, which was surprising initially, but this forms the basis of hair transplant from where it started and to what it is today. So the basis is the safe donor site, which is the back, and that the hair transplanted to the recipient area does not fall. But what could be the reason for actually the hair loss happening in men or male pattern baldness? There are two important factors. One is genetic and the other one is the hormonal influence. If you look at the genetic factors, usually you'll find that this baldness or hair loss happens to run in families. But at the same time, you may find that it has skipped one generation, or it could affect one sibling and spare another one. So it is not necessary that every person has to be subjected to this type of hair loss if the family history is there. And sometimes the father may not have this problem, but in the maternal side, the maternal uncles may all be bald. So that sort of a situation also results in hair loss being expressed genetically. Now the other factor is the hormonal influence. The main hormone which is responsible is the testosterone. The breakdown of testosterone to what is called DHT. The DHT is actually able to attack those hair follicles which have certain receptors. And when this happens, it results in hair loss. But the receptors at the back of the head, the safe donor area, is very less, or many of them do not have, as a result of which they escape the problem of hair loss because of DHT. Hence, these hairs are not vulnerable, and when removed and transplanted to the recipient area, they are able to survive and produce luscious growth. Now, how does one proceed if he has a problem with hair loss? Every patient of hair loss is not a candidate for surgery. The first and foremost thing that one must keep in mind is we must find out what exactly is the cause for hair loss, and then see what can be done. So the correct approach would be for that individual to consult a dermatologist or a hair transplant surgeon who is dealing with all aspects of hair loss, and then get themselves investigated. Very often a clinical investigation or a clinical examination itself may give a clue that mostly it is male pattern baldness, but there are many causes of hair loss which are best done by certain investigations, and also by people who are able to evaluate this clearly, especially dermatologists. They will be able to sometimes even include a biopsy, or they may do a trichoscan, or they may even do a folliculoscopy study to find out what exactly is the cause for the hair loss, and whether there are any other signs which suggest that the hair loss may not be due to androgenetic alopecia, but it could be several other skin conditions which can also result in hair loss. Now, why is this important? If it is any medical condition which can be treated medically with the help of topical applications or tablets, then that would be the first line of treatment, and many times this could be corrected with the use of these medicines. For example, a patient may have a type of alopecia areata, which is also a cause for hair loss, but it is not something that requires surgical correction. It can be treated medically. If the patient has androgenetic alopecia or the typical hair loss in men, even then they should be first initiated into medical treatment. Usually it comprises of a topical application of minoxidil. There could be nutritional support, which in the form of B12, biotin, and vitamins and minerals. There could also be some other hormone factors which affect DHT. There are some tablets called like Finax or Finasteride, which are also used in the treatment. So this has to be discussed with the concerned doctor who is taking care of you. Once the medical treatment is initiated, we need to give time. At least 6 months of treatment will give us some idea about whether the hair loss has got stabilized, and whether some of these hairs which were looking very thin and miniaturized would also start becoming thicker. So if this solves the problem, then there is no need to go for surgery. But if the hair loss has been stabilized, the donor site looks good, but the area of baldness has not improved, then we have to look at hair transplant. And once the surgery has been decided upon, then the things that has to be evaluated is where should the hairline be located, to what extent the area of coverage should take place, and what density of hair follicles will be used per square centimeter, and hence how many follicles would actually be required to be removed and transplanted to this area. One must realize that in a case of extensive baldness, the number of hair follicles lost will be much more than what is actually available in the safe donor area. So it is not possible to completely replace hair for hair, and so that is something which every patient planning to undergo surgery should realize, that there are limitations to this surgery. A wig would probably give you a full density, or a hair piece would be able to give you very good density, but many people are not inclined to using that. A hair transplant can definitely produce improvement and decent results, but it may not be able to give you the original density that is required, but more often than not it is able to produce a satisfying result. Now recently, or maybe in about last 10 years or more, the other areas of hair, that is for example a beard and body, have also been used to give additional supply of hair for these for doing the surgery. So by removing hair from the beard and also using body hair, more hair is now available as compared to what was going on maybe 20-30 years back. There are two methods of hair transplant. One is called a strip method, or FUT, and the other method is called FUE. These two methods are actually what is meant by how the hair is removed from the back of the head. So FUT means a strip is removed from the back of the head, and that area is then stitched, and from the strip individual hair follicles are separated using magnification under microscopy, and then these individual follicles are transplanted in the recipient area. The other method, called FUE, instead of removing a strip, using punches which are very sharp or dull depending on what method and whether it's manual or motor driven, holes are drilled by which the hair follicle is then removed from the donor area individually, and then these are then transplanted to the recipient area. So the process involved in the removal of hair is different, that is in a strip as compared to an FUE, whereas the method of implantation or what is done in the recipient area is the same for both. So as I mentioned to you, the transplanted hairs are removed and put to the recipient area, and the entire surgery is done under local anesthesia. That means the patient is awake and basically does not require anything more, maybe a light sedation if he wants, otherwise the entire surgery can be done under local. It may take anywhere between 4 and 8 hours, and the patient is actually asked to have a head wash and have an antibiotic started before he comes for surgery, and then the hair wash is repeated before the surgery, and then sterile gowns and drapes are used, and depending on what method, whether it's going to be strip or FUE or a combination, the hair is extracted or a strip is excised, and after this the separation of the follicles is done. This is usually done by a team. We usually have about 4 to 6 people working so that every hair follicle is separated, and then this is stored in cold saline, following which the surgeon then starts making slits, or he starts using an implanter, or he does what is called a stick and place method, by which a hole is drilled, very small hole, and into which the hair follicle is inserted. So this is a very tedious and time consuming procedure by which anywhere around 1000 to 3500 follicles could be transplanted depending upon the area and the need of the patient. One must understand that a follicular unit does not necessarily have one hair, but it could have 1 or 2 and sometimes even 3 head follicles are there. A unit is basically comprising of a sebaceous, pilosebaceous unit as well as hair follicle, which all comes wrapped together, and hence it is called one follicular unit. After the surgery, the patient is discharged. That means he goes home. There's usually no dressing, but there could be one for the donor area in the form of a gauze or a pad. We usually give a sterile cap, like a cricket cap, which is sterilized, so that this area is covered. It's not for anything else except that the area which is operated upon may look a little blood stained, so to avoid the visibility, this is used. The patient is then advised to continue with antibiotics, analgesics, and some anti-swelling measures, and he is advised to have a head wash on the 4th day. By about 2 weeks' time, the transplanted hairs usually fall off, and the growth starts only after 4 months. And the results will take anywhere around 10 months to a year, by which time the hairs are sufficiently long. By about 1.5 years, they are not only good in length, but also they become a little thicker, and the results thereby improve from where it was 4 months ago to about 1.5 years. So this is roughly the time frame when we get the final picture. The surgery does have some side effects, and the patient should be aware of it. There is initially facial swelling, which will last about 3 to 4 days or 5 days, depending upon how much of fluid has been inserted. So we do give some tablets to reduce the swelling, but usually this happens to come and then it goes off. The patient should be told beforehand and reassured if they are concerned about it when it actually happens. There is some numbness in the scalp, and this is usually due to the sensory nerves being temporarily damaged during the time of surgery. The sensation will recover in a few months' time, and it is something, if the patient is aware of, will understand that this is a normal sequelae. Scars in the donor area are permanent. There will be a cut mark if it's a strip surgery, and there will be multiple dots if it's an FUE method. Both these scars are permanent, so there's nothing like a scarless surgery. And these scars, however, are usually concealed if the hair is kept long enough. But if any time the patient has a very short haircut or he shaves the head, these scars will be seen. Sometimes some patients experience folliculitis or small inflammation of the hair follicles when they start erupting, but usually they go off. There could be variability in results, and this would actually depend upon the density of the donor site. So it is very important to critically examine how good the donor area is in terms of density, number of follicles per square centimeter, the texture of the hair, the caliber of the hair, the color of the hair. So many factors are involved in producing a good result. As I discussed earlier, there are other sources of hair like the beard and body, but this actually has to be done only by a FUE method. A strip method is not used. A beard hair probably comes closer in terms of the rate of growth, because that also is important. Since the beard grows quite rapidly, it is almost commensurate with the hair growth from the scalp, but the beard hair has got a thicker caliber, hence we cannot use it just as a separate entity, but it has to be used along with hair follicles from the scalp. That is, they are mixed together and used. They are not put complete. We don't use beard as a completely single donor area and use it in one specific site. So it is mixed along with the other hair follicles taken from the scalp. The body hair is a lesser alternative, though many people have very good body hair growth, but you must realize that the rate of growth of body hair is not as good as that of the scalp, and also the quality and the texture, sometimes they have a lot of curl, so they again have to be used with discretion, and if they are used, they have to be mixed with the scalp hairs, and so that they add more like a filler rather than individually used as a hair follicle. I think I'll be able to show you a few representative pictures for you to get a better idea of what this surgery is all about. So as I mentioned to you, we have to initiate medical treatment, and if at all surgery is to be done, it is to be done only after the hair loss is stabilized. So this is the donor area that I was talking about, and usually if the person becomes completely bald, this amount of hair is something which will normally persist. So this is the hair that is removed either by a strip or an FUE and then transplanted to the front. All these areas are potentially vulnerable. That is why we should not remove hair from here and put, because these hairs can fall over a period of time. So the basis is, as long as this hair is living and available, any hair removed from here will also stay the same length of time as the donor area. Now these are examples of how we draw the hairline. Certain types of people prefer a V type of hairline, some people prefer a U type. So all these depends upon the framework of the person and what exactly he expects and the age. So as I mentioned to you, donor site evaluation, besides clinically examining, there are what are called trichoscopes or folliculoscopes, which actually are cameras with magnifying lenses, which actually tells you how the follicles are. As you can see over here, this is a follicle which has 3 hairs, this has got single hair. So if a person has 2 or 3 head follicles in higher number, that means the density is good. As a result, that person will have better results. This is again a folliculoscopy from the beard. Here you can see very clearly majority of the hairs are single. In high density people with very thick beard, you may find that there are 2 hairs, and also the caliber, the thickness of the hair is much more than the scalp hair. So these are some results of patients. This person was actually a grade 7. You can see he's completely bald. So we have given more density to the front to make it look more natural, and some lesser density to cover right up to the area including the crown. So, and here is another patient. You can see he has a tuft of hair over here, but both the bitemporal areas are lost, and you can see how the hair has grown in that area. And similarly in this picture you can see how the framework has changed, the facial framework looks different, and even these, what we call as temporal triangles, when we give that, it starts looking more natural rather than just doing only this part. So it is not just a technique, there is artistry in planning. The hairline should look very natural and irregular, it should not be visible, and the density also should be such that it should make an impact. As you can see over here, you can see when the hair is combed, it looks very natural. And similarly, again, you look for the temporal triangles, you can see that these are very thin and very fine hairs as compared to the hairs which have been put in the other areas. Here you can see this person's growth is quite thick and curly. When persons have very curly hair, then the results look better in terms of coverage. This is one patient. I showed you the hairline of that patient in the beginning. This you can see, of course, these are email pictures. I don't have an actual follow-up at what he has sent, and you can see how the appearance has changed once the hair has grown, and it looks really thick and nice. I think I've covered most of the areas of hair transplant, and we're very happy to answer some questions if you have any. Thank you so much.
Yes, doctor. We have few questions from our patients as well from our viewers.
Yeah.
The first question: at what age group patient can be treated for hair transplant?
Okay. Usually, medical treatment can be started even if he's 17 or 18 years. If the hair loss has started, medical treatment should be started. But surgically, we usually wait till the patient is about 22, 23 years old. There are reasons for it. By 23, we may be able to see a certain pattern by which the hair is progressive. Second thing is, many times when we start surgery, when the boy is very young, like 18 or 20, if anybody does that, then the mistake would be that the hairline would be very low, and if he continues to lose hair at the back of the head, then he'd be stuck with some hair transplanted or transplanted hairs in the front, which would look very unnatural and nothing can be done about it. So 23 is a good time, and any time after that, even if it's 25 to 28, that is not an issue. We have even operated on elderly patients, even 50 to 60 years of age, if they want it, and if they are in good frame of mind and good physical and mental health, then there's no issue in dealing with that. So minimum age I would recommend is around 23 years.
23. Thank you, doctor. And the next question: will the surgery will be useful in all the patients with baldness?
Okay, if you say will hair grow if transplanted, yes, hair will grow. But will it be useful? That would totally depend upon what the patient wants. So hence it's so important that a good counseling and the patient really understands not what the surgery can do, more importantly what it cannot produce, what result it cannot produce. If he is able to understand that, then he will be able to appreciate the result, because every patient cannot expect the same quality of result, because so many variables are there, including density of the donor site. So it is the doctor's duty to tell that in some patients the results are better. In his case, whether the result, if the density is not that good, he may not get that good a result. If he understands this, then the surgery will be useful. If he feels that that is not what he wants, then probably he should not undergo the surgery.
Okay, thank you, doctor. And the next question: can this surgery can be done in women?
Surgery can be done in women, but there are certain specific indications. I would say if in some women who do not have actually a hair loss, but sometimes they may have a broad forehead. It is by birth, or many times it could be that sometimes women are actually pulling their hair back and tying it tightly, so it results in what's called a traction loss. In such indications, hair transplant could be an answer. But in women who are having diffuse hair loss, that means they have thinning of the entire scalp, and it's a type of female pattern baldness. In such patients, I personally feel that even though transplant can produce hair growth, but the gaps still persist and the thinning still is visible, so the patients may not be really happy with the type of result that is produced. This has to be discussed with the patient. If she is still willing for it, then we go ahead with it. If she would want something very thick, as many women do, then surgery may not be able to produce. In such situations, probably a hair piece may be a more practical alternative.
Thank you, doctor. And the next question, which are the other areas where hair transplant can be done?
Okay, I basically discussed about hair transplant in the scalp, but then you have hair loss in the face. For example, somebody may have lost the eyebrow because of an injury, because of a scar, or because of burns. In such cases, also hair transplant can be done for restoring the eyebrow or even the eyelash. And sometimes there are young men who come who feel that their beard density is very less, or sometimes they don't grow a mustache, or sometimes the central portion of the mustache is not growing thick, so they are 25 26 years old and they are quite embarrassed about it. So hair transplant can be done to restore a beard, it can be done to restore a mustache, or it could be done for scars on the eyebrow area, or it could be done for burns of the face. Sometimes say a child has suffered burns in infancy or childhood, and when they actually grow up they'll find that that area of the beard doesn't grow hair, so we can do transplant for that also. So these are various indications where hair transplant could be done.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you for your answers for all the questions. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for your listening. Thank you so much.